Hello, I'm Infamous Fear. What's that? Looks like we've just got time for a rapid race through the world of Infamous Queer.
Pride, 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 darling, darling, pride, pride 95!
I've talked about adaptations before and how it isn't always possible for a play or a novel adapted to cinema to retain the original spirit that made the story so good. Nowhere is this more evident than when your book features a blank main character whose only narrative purpose is to be an audience surrogate in a cast full of weirdos. On the page we don't have to know much about him, but on screen we have to see him. And a giant ensemble cast full of weirdos? Good luck fitting them into a film without making it 5 hours long. With that in mind, let's take a look at Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Insight, foresight, more sight. The clock on the wall reads midnight.
The story features an excuse for a main character who goes to Savannah to write a fluffy society piece on a wealthy southern gentleman's fabulous Christmas party. However, the southern gent murders his rent boy, and the main character decides to stick around for the trial, hoping that he'll get a book out of the whole deal. Meta! On the way, he meets a bunch of bizarre characters, including an insane man who goes around with horseflies leashed to him, an obnoxious drag queen, and a whole bunch of old women who look and act like obnoxious drag queens. The film is also directed by Clint Eastwood, who is definitely capable of producing good cinema. So that sounds awesome, right? Unfortunately, not in film form. So where did they go wrong? Characters. The worst character in Clint Eastwood's adaptation is the main character, John Jack Kelso. No, not that Jack Kelso, although he's been accused of being an overly perfect idealised character as well. John in the book is the narrative device through which we view all the crazy goings on. In the movie, he's a horrible waste of space. John Cusack's acting consists of never closing his mouth. At one point, he grins maniacally when he's being hit on by the drag queen, the Lady Chablis, but he doesn't do much more than that, and it gets to the point where your main reaction to the film is to yell at him to close his goddamn mouth. In the book, he was an ambiguously gay character, but in the movie, he's given a boring, terrible love interest in the shape of Clint Eastwood's daughter. She's not a great catch, but seeing as she's the only woman in town who doesn't look like a drag queen, for a supposed heterosexual with no personality, she's probably the best he can get. Kevin Spacey plays Jim Williams, the transparently closeted southern gentleman. He's an antiques dealer who surrounds himself with beautiful things. Beautiful things also extends to mean Jude Law, but we'll get to that in a moment. Jim Williams seems keen to hold on to his image of gentility, no matter what, even if it means conducting antiques deals in prison, and insisting that coming out would kill his mother, even though she's already heard everyone in the court testify about his homosexuality already.
Billy and I had a bond. That's not something that they're ever going to understand. They'll just see the sex and the age difference.
Jim Williams is also given some of the most amusing scenes in the film.
Well, I don't know who hates me more, the Atwells or their dogs. Lon Atwell's been upset with me ever since I had him removed from the museum board. Well, there's only one way to remedy this.
Wait a minute, I just realised something. Dracula, who was a man of wealth and taste in culture, hits on Jonathan Harker, who was an audience surrogate with an impossibly blank face. Well, there's not really much more to that comparison, but Jim would make a hilarious vampire. Or it could just be that I want to see John Kelso killed because close your fucking mouth! Jesus, I know people complain about Keanu being blank, but at least he doesn't catch flies with his gormless flapping maw. Billy Hanson. He's the cheapest ride in town from the looks of it, and a massively obnoxious asshole with a terrible accent. Jude Law should be banned from playing American characters because fuck you, Jude Law, that's why.
Fuck you, goddamn bitch! Give me $20.
You get paid on Friday like everyone else. What do you need $20 now
Give me
for?
$20 I need to get fucked up is what.
Well, I'd say you've accomplished that, sport.
Give me the money. I ain't even close to getting fucked up the way I want to get.
No, I'm not going to give you money for liquor, marijuana, cigarettes, whatever else you've invited into.
Fuck you, Jim! You don't give me warnings, I give them to you, remember, because I can back mine up.
Did I say fuck you? I meant fuck you! Sadly, because he's so damn funny, Billy Hanson is only really in this movie for 2 scenes. Most of the information about him and Jim Williams' relationship is just recited in the courtroom.
Was that the full extent of your relationship with Billy Hanson?
We became intimate. Billy could be very charming. He had his girlfriends and I had mine. But to me, sex is a perfectly natural thing. Didn't bother me, didn't bother him. It was just an occasional natural occurrence between consenting adults.
It's a shame because we could have had a hilarious reenactment of Morris. While they're both lower class yard workers with ridiculous accents, it's not that much of a stretch.
Fuck you, goddamn bitch!
Glad to see you down again so soon, sir.
We've also got Minerva, who is a ridiculous voodoo practitioner, and the Lady Chablis, who is the cattiest drag queen I've ever seen, and a whole bunch of other characters who would have been more interesting protagonists than John Flapping Jaw Cusack. After the fabulous Christmas party, Jim is confronted by Billy, who is drunk and stoned. Billy threatens Jim with a gun, and Jim grabs another gun and shoots him. Then there's a court case where the key conflict is whether the jurors will accept that he killed Billy in self-defense, or whether they'll be negatively influenced by the fact that he was an older man sexually involved with a younger one, in a time and a place when it was more socially acceptable to be discreet. In the book, Jim has 4 trials over 10 years due to juror discrimination and new evidence coming to light, and indeed he was the only person in the state of Georgia to be tried 4 times for the same crime. Mercifully, because the movie is already 2.5 hours long, we're spared 4 trials and instead we're subjected to 1. Jim confesses to John that he killed Billy more or less in cold blood before Billy had a chance to fire at him, and then lies in court saying that Billy fired first. But don't worry, karma makes him pay in what may be one of the most hilarious death scenes of all time. According to Internet Movie Database, this scene is eerie and chilling instead of, being the room spinning around and bleeding Jude Law smirking like a rapist at dead mustachioed Kevin Spacey. What's wrong with this scene? Maybe it's the music. No, that wasn't much better. May as well go all out and make the scene as ridiculous as possible. This is a difficult movie to review because it's not really that gay, but it's not much of a period drama either. After all, the 1980s were only 30 years ago. I could get Gendered Hipster in here to talk about the Lady Chablis, but she's barely in this movie and she doesn't really have any bearing on the plot. Infamous Sphere! You shouldn't have bothered to talk about this movie at all. But if I didn't, I wouldn't have an excuse to play that spinning dead Jude Law scene, would I? You're right. Go ahead. Jim Williams and Billy Hanson aren't really much in the way of gay characters because you never see them doing anything gay, unless eyeing up John Kelso counts. Apparently Billy is very much in demand as a hustler, both with male and female clients, not that his obnoxious personality would indicate that.
Did you ever have sex with Billy?
No, sir.
Are you yourself a homosexual?
No, sir, I ain't no fairy. I've had some experiences, but I'm out of it now.
Would you care to explain to the jury what you mean by that, out of it?
It's wrong. Bible says so.
Now, how long have you been out of it?
Almost 3 weeks.
We never see him do anything gay though. If you want to see Jude Law having sex with a man, go watch Wild. If you want to see him playing another man's boyfriend, go watch Sherlock Holmes. And if you want to see him play a pretty queer with a bizarre accent, go watch Rage.
If you do not love yourself, you cannot be beautiful.
Don't watch this. Both gay characters are also dead by the end of the film, which I'd criticise more if it weren't based on a real-life murder case. It's not a gay story, and it's lukewarm and crappy as a crime story, although the courtroom scenes are mildly interesting. There's a hint of an examination of prejudice, but because we have to see the whole movie through John Cusack's eyes, it isn't really explored. All in all, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil is the textbook definition of disappointment. I will accept that the book is a very hard one to adapt, with its ensemble cast of characters that make you lose track of the story if you put it down for more than a day, but Clint Eastwood promised so much and delivered so little. The film doesn't do much except make me annoyed that John Cusack didn't accidentally get shot in Jim Williams' study as well. If I were John Berendt, I'd be spitting in my, well, not grave because he's not dead yet, but he may as well be because he's dead to me since I've watched his monument to mediocrity.
I love you, boy. But I ain't the only one. You know that, don't you?
This is one of the many films I've seen that languish in the doldrums of IMDb. Films that get rated around 6.5. They're not good enough to be good, and they're not bad enough to be bad. They're also usually not gay enough to be gay. If you want to watch one of those, go do me a favour and watch Watcher instead. You'll have a lot more fun, and it's about an hour shorter. And if you'll excuse me, it's time for me to go and get fucked up!
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind and he was willing to make a deal. When he came across this young man sawing on a fiddle and playing it hot, and the devil jumped up on a hickory stump and said, "Boy, let me tell you what. I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too.